This is a short and simple video of how I changed my cheap Chinesium brush cutter. This is a Wolverine brand, but they're all pretty well the same. How I turned it in from having this setup on here to having a stump jumper and some real blades instead of these cheap ones. The first thing to do, very simple. Go ahead and get your cotter pin out of here. So step one, get that cotter pin out of there so you can take this castle nut off. They're probably going to be hand loose like this, like every other bolt was on this actual brush cutter to begin with. Step two is pretty simple. We're going to take this thing off. We don't need it. It's broke. But while I have it off and available for you to see, I want you to look at this. Right here in the center. That is a 12 spline hub. Very simple. It's actually a really common hub. And that is how we're going to match up the stump jumper that we're putting on here. This is the stump jumper. So essentially it looks like a little dish and makes it to where whenever you're, let's say you're going to run into something, right? It's got the edges that are beveled on it so it'll hit it and bump up rather than trying to run into it or chop it up like that one did. Now, notice it has our 12 spline center, and that's exactly what we need. It's not ridiculously heavy, but there's some weight to it. Just like that, it's that simple to put it on. And you'll notice we didn't put the cotter pin in. There's a reason for it. These are the new blade bolts that you're gonna need. Now, these measure a 1 1/8 inch shaft right here, but they're a 1 1/2 inch back here. They do have a notch on them. You'll be able to see it right there, I believe. It's important that it has that notch or it won't work on the stump jumper. Now, the reason this isn't bolted all the way on is because of this. Notice that I can't get it on there. Now, we just test fitted this because I wanted to make sure that I have the right spline count and nothing was goofed up on it because, again, Chinesium parts, quality control, not the greatest. Now that we know it fits on there, though, we're going to take it right back off and we can put our blades on. Now, you've already been introduced to this 12 spline stump jumper that obviously we've already bolted on there. What you haven't been introduced to is these. Now, these are brush cutter blades like a normal Bush Hog would have. And matter of fact, for comparison, we'll show you. Now, for comparison, this big one, of course, that's our new one. This little tiny thing, that's the old one that came on the Wolverine. Now, you're not gonna be able to tell that well, but look how much thicker this one is, right? Cutting edge and all. Much thicker, much wider. Now, to attach the new blades to the stump jumper, again, very simple. This is a blade bolt. Now, Bush Hogs, they come in various sizes, not so much shapes, but different arrangements. This one has a 1 1/8 inch shaft, and it has a 1 1/2 inch cap. Now, the important thing here is that we have this 1 1/8 inch shaft because that's going to fit through the hole. The other important thing is this notch right here. If you don't have that, it will not seat all the way in. And we want it to seat all the way in because we want this bolt to stay still. We don't want it to move. We want the blade that's going to have a loose fit around this bolt to be able to spin freely and not spin the bolt with it. Now, I want you to see this and understand this up close and personal. This notch, right, this bolt is going to go in like so. When you do that, now when you look under here, that space we see between the stump jumper and the cap, that's important. That is what these blades are going to ride on. So see this hole right here? This is going to go in that space. And yes, you'll notice that the 1 1/8 inch bolt hole is much smaller than the, I would guess, 1 1/4, maybe a little more, that this rides on. And as you'll see, it still fits in there. Now notice I can't turn it because that notch catches it. That's okay, because look, this can turn freely. See how the blade is moving, but this W or M is not? Now, we're going to throw the nut on there and tighten it down. Ah, that's probably too far. Now, you are going to have a little bit of a headache because the gap between where the stud comes through and this support here makes it a little difficult to put your retaining pin in for the castle nut. Makes it a little difficult to put the retaining pin in for the castle nut. What I did was put mine in there because the hole is pretty big, big enough anyways that you can do that and then tap it in a little bit. Just like that. You're good to go. Correction. Now you're good to go. I already showed you how this fits. However, I want to show you that these pivot down, right? Notice how it's holding on the side above the blade pivot point or directly in the center at the bottom. If you don't, you're going to get your fingers pinched. Just like that, slides right on. Put this on. Now, the last thing to point out, the blade length you get. So I got 24 3/4 inch blades. These will reach all the way out there, no problem. They're not gonna hit anything. The downside is I did give up a little bit of cutting width. Instead of cutting a full 66 inches, we're gonna do it this way because it's gonna be easier for me to hold it and get my measurement. So if I measure from here to the center, I'm at 29 inches. Okay. Now what was a 66 inch cutting width, I don't know how well you're gonna see this, but it's roughly about 33, actually, I'm struggling to hold this in place and read numbers off to you, but it's about 33.5 inches from the blade tip to the center where the nut goes through. Now, 33.5 would yield us a 67 inch cutting width. Unfortunately, 29 is only going to yield us about 58. This one is shorter. And honestly, the biggest reason is because I was going to go with 27 3/4 inch blades. Couldn't find them. I guess there was a sudden run on 27 3/4 inch blades for Bush Hogs. I will get some in the near future. So aside from the cutting width, I'm not worried about the extra weight here. Mostly because the extra weight is near to the actual pivot point or the center where it's going to be spinning from the circle, right? The other thing is that these blades give it the opportunity to get away from a bad situation. Right now with that one, if I hit a rock, a stump, a big tree branch, whatever it is I hit, it doesn't have a way to kick back unless it's like the last, I want to say those things are a little less than a foot long. So like this section here, if you hit it there, yeah, it could kick back. But if you hit from here in, which you can see on that one, I hit a lot of stuff and that's exactly what happened. It broke it. It cannot handle that because those direct hits, it doesn't have a way to get away from them. This has rounded edges on it and stuff. So even if it does hit it, let's say I've got a rock right here that's going into it. It's gonna push this up or lift it up rather than sit there and try to beat on a flat edge like you've seen has happened repeatedly here. I'm confident that's what the result was of this breaking off. Now, aside from all those notes, let's go test this thing out and see how it performs. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm super ecstatic with the way it performs, and I feel way more confident about not hitting things and damaging stuff since it has a way to kick back more, and also it's rounded edges, not flat edges that are going to hit a surface and hit hard. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a blessed week, and remember, if you're going to talk about somebody, talk to God about them.